Hello, my name's Kevin. I'm an aspiring writer. I basically have like one published short story that, well, I guess I should have used some kind of past tense there because I took it down. It was a combination of, well, I just don't think it was ready, and it was a requirement of a college course, so that's why I actually self-published it, all right, because it was required of the actual course. And, I could sit here and explain like, hey, this is who I am. This is what this channel is about. But we're just going to jump into the meat of the content, ladies and gentlemen, all right? And we're going to beg the question, is it required for you to have a creative writing degree in order to, well, write creatively? The quick, simple answer to that is no, it is not. Oh, you could Google it, Bing it, Ask Jeeves. Well, technically, it's not Ask Jeeves anymore. It's just Ask. I have no idea why they changed that mascot. Whatever. And you're going to get tons of articles that'll say the same thing. You could YouTube it. Find tons of other videos. All right. So what's going to make my video just a little bit different than, say, someone else's video? Well, I actually got a degree in creative writing for entertainment. A BFA, ladies and gentlemen. Full Sail University. Yep. June of 2014. The quick answer is a creative writing degree is more of a want rather than something that's actually required or needed. All right. In fact, I would say that this was actually a waste of my GI Bill. And now I will ultimately explain if you would like the longer version, because you're probably going to hang around. So, first off, you have to understand a couple of things. Creative writing was nowhere in my forte when I was actually researching college courses at the time. I was looking more into programming or web development. In fact, I had decided I was going to take a web design course at Full Sail University. While talking to the college advisor, she asked me about my other interests. And, well, before I knew it, I was on my way to getting this. And was 4 or 5 months into the degree is when I actually began to regret it. All right? Yeah. You could sit here and have someone who doesn't have a creative writing degree sit here and tell you that it's not needed. Take it from somebody who has a creative writing degree. It's not needed. And the reason why I ultimately feel this is every textbook that I received from this degree, like 80% of them I already owned. They would show up in the mail because I did the course online, and I'd open it up and, oh, I already own this how-to book because I bought it. Now, in order to understand this, let me explain to you how I was inspired to write books. I was inspired roughly in the 5th grade. At this time, I mostly checked out books about spiders, lizards, anything that was animal related. I checked out. One day I went in there and I came across these books called Goosebumps by a guy named R.L. Stine. Is that I read these books and I was blown away. All right. In fact, I can't. I don't have a Goosebump books right here, but I do have Wind in the Willows. Basically, I was reading the book. And I don't know exactly how far in the book I got, but there came a point where I stopped, looked at the page, and I was just in awe. I was just in awe of what I was reading. I was like, this feeling that I'm feeling right now, I want to give this to another kid, all right, my age. I want to write something like R.L. Stine and give this feeling that I have to another kid. That's what I want to do. This is awesome. This is amazing, all right? I feel like the silent friend for some of these characters. Even though R.L. Stine's books are not character-driven, he's admitted this before. They're story-driven. Of course, I wouldn't find that out until, like, way later when I was older. And that's ultimately what inspired me to become a writer. And because of this, as I grew up, guess what? I became introduced to other forms of writing. All right, the very first comic book my dad bought me was in an AM/PM gas station. It was Scooby-Doo. The second one was a Superman comic book, specifically the one where, minor spoiler alert, he died. He was fighting Doom. No, not Doom. Doomsday? not. All right, I'm not a real big comic book guy. All right, I'll admit that right now. But the point being is that reading these, it was another interest. I want to write comic books. And I was also kind of a little bit artistic. It's not something that I stuck with, like writing. So I'm not very good at it in this modern age because I didn't continue to practice. But at the time, I was like, I could write and draw my own comic book. So it was, asking my parents for some books. And the basic thing is that with everything I found, when I found a movie that I liked, I want to write movies. I want to write a TV series. So I began to buy how-to books when I got older and started to research it myself. And the biggest problem that I had with this degree, which is one of the basic fundamentals of why I did not care for it, why I felt it was useless, is that all of the textbooks were books that anybody could buy, that they could read, and literally self-teach themselves. And I used my GI Bill. So it's like, I didn't really pay for this. But it's like, if I had to pay for it through a school, like a loan or something like that, it would be an utter waste. And the reason why I say this, and this might be some kind of hard criticism toward the course itself, and maybe other courses like it, I don't know, I haven't taken other courses like it, is that I expected them to have, I don't know, their own textbooks, Teach me something that I can't go to Barnes and Nobles and buy off the bookstore. It just felt that there wasn't much creativeness put into creating the course material for the degree. And because of that, I felt that it was rather cheap and generic, that they're using stuff that I could Amazon or walk into Barnes and Nobles and buy off the bookshelf myself. Now, the one positive thing that came from this degree is that this was also a moment where I would start to write something, and then the next day I'd read it, not like it, delete it, start over. And eventually I would do that so much, eventually I would stop with the project. This doesn't interest me, I'm getting bored, let's move on to the next project. But guess what? Rinse, repeat. And I found myself in this never-ending cycle, probably why I'm 38 years old, and the only thing I've ever completed was a few short stories, all right? Those that were required by the college courses, some of the college courses that I took, a 5-minute screenplay. I think there was like a 30-minute screenplay we had to write as well. I can't really remember. A children's book, which I had to draw. Oh, God, that was horrible. I'll probably create a video showing my horrendous drawings, all right? But that was horrible. And yeah, it was, the only positive thing was that because of this rut that I was in, I destroyed my own stuff. It was like, oh, it's crap, it sucks, it's garbage, nobody's going to read this, nobody's going to like it. I don't even like it, so who the heck's going to read it? It wasn't until this, and this is probably the biggest positive thing from this degree that I'm holding upside down, is being able to communicate with people I don't even know, and them telling me that my stuff is good. It's not garbage, it's not trash, it's not utter horse shit, all right, and every other thing that artists do in order to destroy what they're creating because they don't think it's good enough. But the reality of it is, it's not so much that it's not good enough for other people, it's not good enough for you, but the reality of it is it's like, are you really writing it for yourself? And that's a hard question to ask, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, if I wouldn't read it, who would read it? And that's a basic, honest question. But you're never going to know if you're actually going to, if you would read it if you don't finish it. Because maybe, for example, like I said, I would start writing, I'd get probably, the most I would write is probably about 5-6 pages. And I would literally, the next day, be like, this is crap, doing it over. And then the next day, that day I probably only write a couple of sentences or a paragraph or two or a page or two. Next day, crap, doing it over. And it was, honestly, thanks to this degree, that I was introduced to people that was like, that it basically was like, you know what, my writing isn't as bad as I think it to be. I am my own worst enemy. I am my own worst destroyer. All right. In fact, I actually created this saying, I'm the destroyer of my own worlds. And that's because I have destroyed so many worlds that never made it to paper, never made it to a publisher, that no one will ever read. Because I am my worst enemy when it comes to creativeness. And that is true for anyone, whether we're sculpting, painters, artists, I have a friend. She is a painter. I think she does fucking amazing shit. I even paid her $200 to paint me a scene that I saw in the video game Skyrim, because I thought it was really cool, and I thought it would be a cool little project for her. And same concept, all right? She's her own worst enemy, in her opinion of her work. But, that goes to show that every artist is. So that is definitely one of the biggest positive things from this degree, is that, you know what? You're not as bad as you think you are. There's complete strangers out there. They like your ideas. They like where you're going with it. You just need to finish it. Yeah, because you finish it. And here's some advice to anyone that is brand new and they do exactly what I do. It is easier to rewrite a paragraph, a page, or a chapter as opposed to rewriting your whole story. And here's what I say to this. I don't mean you write the entire thing and you're like, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm talking about you don't even finish a chapter, or you don't finish 2 or 3 chapters, and then you're like, I don't like it, I'm doing it over. It is easier during the revision process is when you should be doing stuff like that. And the reality of it is you're not going to sit there and be like, I'm throwing it all away. You're just going to be like, well, if I take this paragraph out and change, maybe I just take this chapter, move it over here, or do this and that, all right? Make it work. Edit when you actually need it to, not during the creative process. It's very destructive. And that was one of the biggest positive things from this degree, to which I would say at the same time now, which will probably make sense and why I didn't say it in the beginning, is that this was both a waste of my GI Bill and probably the best thing that I used for my GI Bill. But that still comes into the play of what I would say to you is that this is not required. It is more of a want or a need. And as opposed to the needing side, we could say that the interaction with complete strangers that have never read your stuff, giving you honest opinion, could be something that you need. But if you're using a GI Bill or you got to take a loan out, is it going to be worth it? That's only something you can decide, all right? But there are plenty of writing groups out there. Like, I found out, probably about 3 years ago, that there's an actual writing group that meets once a month in my tiny little town. I mean, everybody there is old enough to be my grandparent, all right? I ain't gonna lie. Some of them are probably old enough to be my parents too, but, I digress, whatever. Occasionally, I find someone younger than me or equal to my own age. Research not just the degree that you want, but if you find that, for example, all the textbooks you already own, it's probably not going to be, you're probably not going to learn much. And the only benefit that you're going to get is probably the thoughts and opinions of other people. You are your own worst enemy. And that was the biggest positive thing that came from this degree. In fact, for me, it kind of trumps all of the negative stuff. Because if I had never taken this course, I probably would still be stuck in the rut of never finishing anything. I'm actually kind of happy to say that in 2020, it took me a while to break the habit, because it was a habit. You have to understand, I was doing this since I was a kid. And it's kind of like biting your nails. It's kind of a bad habit to break. So even after I learned that, hey, my stuff isn't that bad, I was so used to doing it that it took me a while to do it. And sometimes I still do it. All right? Just way not as much. So the long answer to this is, like I said, not needed, not required. It's more of a want than anything. And it's going to have both pros and cons. One, based on the material that is being taught to you, whether it's original and creative or whether it's something you could go to Barnes & Nobles and buy off the bookshelf. You know what I'm saying? But if all you really need is like communication with other writers, there are tons of places to do that with in this modern age. So I would say that in that case, it's probably not that useful to you. Now, I ain't gonna lie. I love the idea of teaching creative writing. When I came across Brandon Sanderson's courses he was putting up, I'd be like, that'd be pretty fucking sweet. I even was like, maybe I should get my master's, which is kind of ironic because of everything I just explained. But I also like the idea of teaching somebody something that I like. Like, there are people that have gotten me talking about writing, and I could talk their ear off. They're like, okay, I really need to go somewhere right now. This is really cool. You're clearly very inspired and love this, passionate about it, but I got things to do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it was way, way longer than I wanted it to be. Anyway, I hope to see you next time. Hope you'll hit that subscribe button. Don't forget that ridiculous bell. It makes me wonder what kind of developing course YouTube developers went through, because, you know, the one thing you learn as a web developer is if the user has to click to do something more than once, you're fucking doing it wrong, YouTube. And that's an objective fact.